think I'm gonna start every podcast like that. How you making, Bone Gang? And welcome back to another Pelican Bone Outdoors podcast. We try and do this live every Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on how I work and when I can find a guest. So you might see Rudd on a lot every time he has time until I can start filling this thing up with more important people. I'm just kidding, Alex. You know I love you.
Yeah, whatever. Now, if you don't start every podcast like that, I am going to be sorely disappointed. I just wanted to let you know that needs to be the intro for every single podcast until it gets big enough that Jim Carrey himself comes and says, "Hey, listen, you
He
can't."
wants some money for it.
Yeah, yeah, I need royalties on that one right there. But I don't think
Dude,
that's happening anytime soon.
I grew up on Ace Ventura and Jim Carrey and Dumb and Dumber, all of that. Dude, I love Jim Carrey.
I love it, dude. Ace Ventura is the sauce. The best part of Ace Ventura is when he goes to the mental hospital
Oh yeah,
and he's
yes,
playing football with the
wearing
hedges.
a tutu.
Come in, coach. I'm ready. Yeah.
Dude, it's hard for people to watch that movie with me because I'll just quote it word for word the whole time I'm watching it. I can't help myself.
Blue 42. Yep, it's my favorite. It's my favorite thing.
Well, today we have Alex Rudd on because I just got back. What is that? A week and a half ago from Tennessee from spending the week at Alex's house. We did some fishing. Alex did some catching. And then we went to the BassMaster Classic, which was my first
BassMaster Classic.
I'll get the words out eventually. English can be tough at times. But yeah, the BassMaster Classic, which was quite interesting for a coon ass like myself. It was pretty different.
It's something to see. And when you're Googling it, folks, make sure that you put that B on the beginning, because if you type in BassMaster Classic on Google, something bad may pop up. But no, yeah, I'm glad you come up, man. It was a fun trip. Oh, there it was. It was a fun trip, and I had a good time. We did, or I did catch a lot of fish. I also caught the back of your head with the crankbait, which kind of sucked. But the classic overall was, I think, an accomplishment this year. It was busy, and I did a lot, but I feel as though everything was a pretty good use of my time. You can also probably tell everybody about the call shad too, because
I can tell everybody anything they want to know about the call shad. Just hit me up and I can explain that to you.
I love it. I love it. But
Make
the
Alex some
question
money.
is, did you have a good time? And what was your assessment of such a large event just for a bunch of dudes who catch a bunch of green and brown fish and then throw them back into the lake?
So I love fishing. So any event built around that, I'm okay with. I'm completely fine with. But it was just, I don't know. So like, there's the expo. So we have the Louisiana Outdoors Show, expo, and it has hunting and fishing and everything, not just the fishing, like the Bassmaster Classic had, but we have the jumping dogs and everything, like when they jump into the pool and stuff like that. So that was very similar, and it just wasn't as big. I mean, the Bassmasters was what three? Well, the main building had what 3 floors, and they were all full of stuff.
Yeah,
and then a whole nother building was full of a whole bunch of them. They had, boats on, just every brand that you can imagine was there.
Yeah, and this year was huge too. Like, this is probably the biggest classic as far as just stuff that I've been to. Like,
Really?
yeah, I mean, just like all the extra rooms with all the extra booths. Like, they had the big stuff there. They had Pure Fishing and Rather Outdoors and all your big boat brands and all that stuff, right? I mean, like, those are big things that show up to kind of all the expos. But like all those extra rooms, kind of where X2 was at. And then, like, I didn't even notice this. And it wasn't until the last day we were walking. So, there's like that big main room that we were in with X2. And then there was like the hallway, but then that other hallway that we went down that went out to the main entrance, there was 4 other rooms down through there that were just like little small conference rooms that were completely packed full of stuff. And I didn't even notice that. And so, yeah, I mean, this year was just phenomenally huge compared to years past, and it broke the record again. So Knoxville broke the attendance record, which is weird to me, because they count you every time you walk in and walk out, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe
we broke the record.
They said it was 160,000 total entries. So I guess, you can extrapolate or destrapolate. I don't know, whatever the word would be for the opposite of extrapolate. But like, it was funny because those like these like human counters essentially is what they were. They look like
Hmm.
metal detectors, but they were people counters is what they were. And there was one of them that like I walked through and I was like turned around and walked right back through and I noticed the number up at the top counted me twice.
I
And
didn't
so
see that.
yeah, there was like a little so if you looked at the machines, the very top, there was like a little blue screen on like the right-hand side, if I remember correctly. And it was just counting up as people walk through. And then there was also like women or men sitting at each of the doors counting with
I
like little
seen that. I seen the
yeah.
little clickers. Yeah.
And so I'm guessing what they would do is they would use the clicker and then just like cross reference it to the human counter and then like, hey, if it's a couple off, whatever, we'll take the highest number and
Right.
go on with it. But like it was hilarious because that thing counted me twice. And so, I guess that's how they were kind of human error or I mean machine error that they were doing it with the people that are counting on the little clickers. But yeah, for every time a person walked past one of those people, they counted them. And the roto stalls were the same way. So it's weird. I mean, listen, Bassmaster's cool. I enjoy the it's funny because I have my Knox County Bassmaster on. This is a very old sweatshirt that has this. Yeah, there's a pit, not in this side. Yeah, that side. There you go.
Jeez,
Yeah,
keep it in
this
the
is
air
just clothes
conditioner.
you wear around the house. But anyway, Bassmasters is cool, and the show that they put on is fun. But I think a lot of the numbers that they put out into the world are very we'll
Inflated.
say inflated. Yeah, inflated is a good word. I myself don't like to inflate my numbers. I like to give them how they are. But when you're trying to compete with Bassmaster, and Bassmaster counts as an impression as someone's name showing up in a newspaper, and
Right.
then they just take all the people that newspaper goes to and goes, "That's how many impressions it is." Well, that's a bull crap number, just like people walking in and out. But regardless, cool show, awesome event. I think it was really awesome for people to be able to come out and enjoy something free, which was the classic. And I think,
That's what I like, because the sportsman show here is not free. You have
yeah,
to pay to get in. They actually split it into 2. I can't remember what they called the other one. One's the outdoors expo, one's the sportsman show. I think that's
mm,
what they did. But, yeah, you have to pay to get in both of them, and then anything you want inside, of course, you're gonna have to pay for. So
yeah, yeah,
that was
yeah,
cool that it was such a big thing and that
yeah.
it was free.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I'm super proud of Visit Knoxville and the way they kind of handled the whole thing, especially with the transportation back and forth to the arena.
Mhm.
That was something that didn't happen last time, and like so, you would park forever away and then have to walk to the expo and then walk to the arena and then walk all the way back where they had buses and then Toyota was there too, riding people over there. And I mean,
Right.
it was just a lot smoother. I feel like this year was a lot smoother system. And I also like the party. We didn't go to it, but they had that big, like opening bash or whatever. And like, they had the drone show and all that. I mean, it's cool, man. I feel proud for my city, like that we can put on stuff like that. And even if it was not 160,000, whatever, it's still a lot of people showed
It
up
was a lot of people.
and they got to enjoy bass fishing. And I think that that's one way that we grow the sport is we get people in there and we let them enjoy cool stuff like that because it makes them go, "Hey, I want to buy a rod and a reel and go try to catch a fish." So it's cool, man.
They had some good deals there too. I mean, I seen like $160 rods that were buy 3 for 170. It was like
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's deal central. The best part was the academy buckets. The
I don't.
the
How do you get one? Because I never did see
I,
where they were giving them out at. I mean, it was a huge line at Academy. If you had to wait in that, I wasn't getting a bucket.
I think that's what you had to do. I think you had to go down there and I think you had to stand at the Academy booth to get the Academy bucket. But I mean, dude, there was guys walking around there with like 3 or 4 of them things filled all the way to the
Yeah.
brim with just
Well, I think they use it as a
stuff.
shopping basket after that.
Oh
After
yeah,
they
yeah,
got it.
yeah. But yeah, it's funny, man. I mean, that's kind of the funny part. Like people would walk up to the X2 booth and be like, "Hey, are these stickers free?" And we're like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
It's like, "Do you have an
Absolutely.
X2 battery?" No, no, I just want the sticker. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Free
Well then
advertisement. Go
yeah,
for it.
yeah, stick it on whatever you want to. Stick it on your forehead for all I care. I mean, get X2 out there into the world. But yeah, people are funny. Like I love those shows because it does bring out some very interesting folks to say the least. And sometimes you just got to sit back and people watch because
Oh,
like
dude, I love people watching. That's the only reason to go in crowds for me. It's just the people watch.
find you a nice comfortable spot and just see what develops.
And then I'm in redneck country, so it was a different breed.
Oh yeah. So my question for you is what did you think about East Tennessee as far as like obviously you got the the short end of the stick when it came to the fishing.
Skunked.
Yeah, it was terrible. I really like.
Was that four fishing trips and skunked on every single one of them. I got a bite. I did get a bite,
You did get a bite, and it was
and
probably
then
a big
I
one.
lost it after a couple cranks. He
Yeah.
he, he hopped off. But man, the it's so different.
Mhm.
So different. Like I went fishing 2, 3 days ago, and then I went again out today. And I mean, my water ain't but 4 to 6 foot at the deepest where I was fishing.
Yeah.
Out there, we went over a spot that was 200 and what 260, 270 feet deep. That
Yeah.
doesn't even compute in my mind.
Yeah.
And then we're fishing water where you can see 15 foot down, which our water doesn't even get 15 foot deep in most of the places I fish, much
Unless
less
you're in the ocean.
yeah, 15
Yeah.
inches of visibility is like, that's a decent day with
Yeah.
with water clarity. So that was kind of crazy. And then the drop, like when we fish in these banks, I mean, it goes what 20, 30 foot down, and you're not even 10 yards from the bank.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's vertical. It's very vertical.
that like I have less I guess variety of baits to choose from. So it's easier for me to make a decision
Yeah.
here than it would be over there because one crankbait can handle the whole depth that I'm fishing in.
Yeah.
From 2 to 5 foot crankbait will pretty much cover the whole water column where I need to fish.
Yeah. Yeah.
You,
Exactly.
it's like you have to find where they're suspended because it might be 30 foot deep and they're just sitting 15 all willy nilly, just hanging on a rock somewhere. It's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Dude, yeah, it's crazy, man. I mean, a lot of that is, and I kind of explained some of the history to you, but I mean, a lot of those places that every single place that we fish is a reservoir. It's a man-made reservoir, and and they built the dams for hydroelectrical, electricity production back in 30s and 40s and all that kind of stuff. But a lot of those places, I mean, essentially all they were giant valleys. I mean, people's homes used to literally be at the bottom of those valleys. So I mean, 270 foot down to the bottom, that used to be the bottom of a valley, and there used to be something down there, whether it was a creek or a river or a person's house or whatever it was. And like we went to Norris that one day, and Norris, we put it in the opposite end of the lake, but if we would have put in down what is called Loyston Sea, there's literally still the town of Loyston submerged in like 165 foot of water there.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you can go and you can literally graph and find the house foundations. And a lot of like when the water goes back up on some of the lakes, like we'll crank those house foundations. Some of those house foundations will be exposed in the winter, and they'll be, 10, 15 foot out of the water. And then once 10 or 15 foot of water gets over the top of them, you go crank them and fish those house foundations because the bass use them as habitat. And I mean,
That's
so
insane.
yeah, it's just a completely different, function of fishing and a function of why the water's there. That's the craziest part. I think a lot of people don't understand, because if you go slightly further north from where I'm at, and I say slightly, you go like New York, Michigan, you get up north, all those lakes are natural and they're made by glaciers. Glacier melted, it left the hole in the earth there and the water settled, and that's your lake. It's what all the Great Lakes are. It's what most of your inland lakes are up there. You go a little bit further south from me, all those lakes are natural. It's just because you're getting lower into the country, like a literally lower elevation. Water gathers there. You get down to where you're at, obviously Mississippi River, you got all the ocean water, all that kind of stuff. Florida's kind of the same way. But this weird band right here in the middle where I'm at, you've got these man-made lakes, and they were literally made, at, you know, by people by damming up a river and just flooding a valley full of water.
So
Like
do
it's
you
just
have any natural lakes around by you?
Reelfoot Lake is the only natural lake around me, and it was created by an earthquake. The New Madrid Fault broke loose in it was 1800s, I think. It's 1800s. I know that people were around when it happened, but it broke loose, and the earthquake was so massive that the Mississippi River actually ran backwards and filled up the crater, like cavity that was made by the earthquake, and that's Reelfoot Lake. But outside of
Wow.
that, I mean, we've got a few like small, like little small, like just lakes, but most of your like big, like what we would consider a lake, not even a pond, they're all man made.
Hmm. You ever go scuba diving where those houses are?
I'm sure there
Do
has
they
been.
allow you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like because they do scuba diving courses on Norris Lake. I think it's. I mean, I'm sure there's been somebody that has done it. I don't know the rules and regulations around it, but I'm sure there's been somebody who's done it, which, that kinda interests me. I don't know, scuba diving kinda freaks me out, but interests me all at the same time.
So I think my thing with scuba diving, remember these shark conversations we've had before? Now, I know there's no sharks in those lakes. Well, I think I know there's no sharks in those lakes.
Could be.
Everything, we've learned about bull sharks now terrifies me in any body of
Bum, bum.
water.
Bum, 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 bum,
But
burner.
even if somebody guaranteed me there were no sharks in there, while I'm down there the whole time, I'm just gonna feel like there's a shark just behind the next shadow about to just terrifies me. I don't know.
They say giant catfish is what you have to worry about. So I do have to address a comment here. And so Dustin lined from the comments, and I don't even do this on my channel, but I guess I'm monitoring the comments because my own ADHD on my own live stream doesn't allow me to do that. But anyway, it says built for barge transit, which is part of the reason, the biggest reason that a lot of the TVA dams were built near me, meaning Norris, Mountain Hill, Watts Bar, Cherokee, Douglas, those dams. A lot of that had to do with the Manhattan Project. And so they disguised bringing power to the Tennessee Valley and bringing power to the people of East Tennessee as the reasoning for what they really needed it for, which was the Manhattan Project and the production of the atomic bomb during World War II. So interesting, but it's a history that a lot of people don't know, and I love to share it. I need to get somebody on from the TVA, which I do have some contacts now on my podcast to talk about that. But we talked about that a little bit. I took you through Oak Ridge and all that.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
And yes, there's bull sharks in Illinois. They've gone that far up before. Yeah, they've been. I think the furthest that a bull shark has ever been tracked was actually on up into Minnesota somewhere.
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Yeah,
That's absolutely terrifying. I
yeah.
hate sharks.
Well,
I mean, I
that's
don't hate sharks. I love sharks. I just don't want to get eaten by one. I guess is
so.
the
You know that Jaws, the movie Jaws, is
Mhm.
inspired by a true story of a great white shark that made its way up into a river in, I want to say Maine is where it was at. I may be wrong, but it's one of those like far northeast states. And it's based on this true story of this great white shark that wreaked havoc in this town, that it swam up this river and like it killed some people. And then Steven Spielberg just took that and like
Ran with
wrote
it.
the story of
Yeah.
Jaws. Yeah, I mean, he just made it up, but I mean, it was based on that event.
Did you see the great white caught off of Alabama, Orange Beach, Alabama?
I did not, but it does not surprise me.
I think that was like the closest one. Oh, in that area, I guess. I don't know. It was a big deal, but I mean, again,
Dude, they're terrifying. I mean, I was in North Carolina one time. We were at or where's Myrtle Beach? That's South Carolina, ain't it?
yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, the Gatlinburg on the ocean. I hate the place. But anyway, we were there and we got to looking at the O search thing. And while we were there was a great like a 16-foot great white shark that was just like perusing up and down the coast the entire time we were there. And like at one point, it was like 2 miles off the beach. Just doing whatever great whites do. I guess it's swimming around out there waiting for somebody to screw up so you could eat them. I mean, like the thing about a great white, I think okay, so great whites are terrifying in their own kind of regard because of how big they are. I mean, it's obviously the biggest shark next to, you got your whale sharks and all that, but your biggest like predatory shark, something that's got teeth that eats things. But like, you look at a bull shark's kind of more scary because they can live in fresh and salt water. The dirtier and dingier the water is, the more they love to be in it. They're kind of like a bass. I mean, they're like a giant largemouth bass, but with teeth, and it'll take your leg off.
Yeah.
But like, dude, those videos of those great white sharks literally launching themselves out of the water after those fake seals, dude, just think about it for just half a second. And this is what I always tell people: like, you watch that and you go, "Oh wow, that was cool." But then when you think that is like a 17-foot, 2,800-pound animal that just launched itself a good 6-7 feet into the air, like,
Like a torpedo.
ugh.
And that would just take a limb straight off if he just hit the limb. I mean, I would hope he would hit my head. Like if that's gonna happen to me, just like that. Just end it right there.
You
God,
know,
that's terrifying.
well, what's crazy is like you see some of these shark attacks. Like there was one that I saw one time that the guy, it was just the sheer impact of the shark hitting him that actually like hurt him more. Like he didn't even get bit. it was just like the sheer impact of the shark coming up under his surfboard and hitting him, like it crushed like 4 of his ribs, like dislocated his vertebrae, dislocated his arm, and like he's flailing, like looking and waiting for the blood, and there's no blood because the shark missed him with his teeth somehow. I mean, God was looking out for him, but like all at the same time, just the sheer impact of literally what is like a car. I mean, it's like a small SUV, or it's like a Honda Civic hitting you at 55, 60 miles an hour and launching you 6 feet into the air. I mean, dude, it is just absolutely insane.
They're just one big muscle.
Mm-hmm. That's all it is. Cartilage and muscle.
So speaking of getting hit in the head, Alex Rudd took a money badger and slapped it right in the back of my head and hooked it. For you guys watching it live, check this out. See if I can do this. There we go. Here we go. This is the short. This is just the short I did of it. So this one's really quick. Oh, wait.
Nope.
I'm getting it. There we go.
I don't see how that somebody.
Hold up.
Okay.
Nope, that's right in the head.
All right. Stuck him in the head with the crankbait's what happened, and now I'm about to rip it out of his head.
It's through the hood, through the hat, in my head. That hurt a little bit. That's hurting a little bit. That's hurting a little bit. I'm glad you wasn't holding on to that hook when that happened. Oh, Mother Nature.
Ready? I'll go on 3. Ready? 1, 2. I love it. I love it. The best part when I hit you is the thwap, and then you hear this. That was my line and my rod flying through the air because, like, I literally just hit you and left you. I mean, like, it broke, and I followed through with the cast. Man, I hit you so hard with that crankbait.
Dude, I didn't feel the hook go in. Mm-hmm. I just felt just a smack of plastic just hit me in the side of the head. Felt like a rock, and then I just felt weight that was still there afterwards, and that's when I knew. That's when I knew I was in trouble.
Dude, that's the first time I've ever hooked anybody. I'll tell you that right now. First time I've ever done it. So I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you had to be on the receiving end of an Alex Rudd thwap in the back of the head.
I'm just glad you know how to take them out. And you enjoy it a little too much. You enjoy a little too much ripping hooks out of people. I've seen it on several of your videos. And y'all got to go to my channel and watch the full length video of it, because I didn't realize it until I was editing it. In that video, I talked about getting a hook in my hand, and you just like, yeah, do it so I can rip it out with the braid trick. And then later that day, you hit me in the head and expect me to believe and do it on purpose just so you could do the braid trick.
Dude. Oh man, I wouldn't. I seriously would like. I wish, like, I hope nobody thinks this is staged, because, like, honestly, like, I would never want to hit somebody, because number one, I know how hard I sling a bait, like, especially that crankbait into that wind. I know how hard I was throwing that bait. Like, dude, I was giving it, I mean, the 5-piece and the French fries. All right, the rice and the beans. I mean, I gave it all of it. All right, and I mean, dude, the best part of the whole video is it's. And that's my line and my rod just traveling through the air with zero resistance, dude. That's amazing. Amazing for you, me anyway. I don't know. It's
the
funny.
Bird nest you had on your bait cast that says it all.
Oh, dude, I had to cut it out. I literally cut it out yesterday, or day before last. I was getting my fishing stuff together, and I was like, "Yeah, I just got to cut this out." And I literally it backlashed it all the way to the spool. No joke.
You had to just re-spool it now, or what?
Oh yeah. I pulled all the line.
Is there any line left?
No, I cut all the line off of it. I mean, it literally, like, it was one of those bird nests. Like, when I started pulling on it, I literally started to see the spool, because I could pull the line up and see the spool under the line, and I was just jerked it all off there and put new line on. So, yeah, thanks to Berkeley for sending me all that 100% trilene, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be able to respool my rods like that. Yeah. So there you go.
And the money badger, since I went home with that one, I might have to put that on a keychain or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. You need to hang it on the wall behind you. You need to get you a little shadow box. The day I got smacked in the head.
I could probably fill up a shadow box of hooks that are going in me, because I already had, this is the 3rd time I've gotten hooked. And twice of them just this year, and we're only in April. So
Yeah, you don't need to
hope that's
continue
not a
that. So,
trend.
yeah,
Yeah,
you
no,
don't
I
need
hope
to.
it's I hope it's not a trend.
I don't like getting hooked. It's one of those things, like, there's nothing that feels quite like having something jabbed in you like that. Like, if anybody's ever, like, stabbed themselves on accident or, like, run something through your finger, your hand, or your foot, it's probably one of the most unique feelings, especially when it comes back out. Like, when you pull it back out is the when it's really just like, ugh, you know what I mean?
Stepping on a Lego.
Yes, yeah, stepping on a Lego, that'll hurt. I mean, that's deep. That's like deep soul pain is what that is. There's a new TikTok trend going around where they get a bunch of boxes and cover up the tops, and you just gotta jump through them, and one person's has Legos
No,
in it. Yeah.
no,
Oh, yeah.
no, not me, buddy.
It's, yeah. Yeah, the last time I got hooked, I was deep sea fishing, and what was crazy is I went airborne on the back of a boat and had a mackerel hook go through my 2 fingers and pin them together, and then I broke my ankle. Well, broke my leg, technically. I broke my what's not your fibula, what's the little one on the outside? I
Tibula?
don't I don't know. Anyway, tibula? Yeah, maybe that's it. I
Mhm.
broke that bone. But I didn't even realize my leg was broke because I had the hook in my finger.
Wait,
And
this
the
all happened at the same time?
Yes, yes. So I got the video on obviously YouTube. It's called "I Broke My Leg While Deep Sea Fishing" or something like that. I've also got like shorts of it on TikTok and everything. But what happened was we're on this giant boat. It's called a Freeman, and it's this like big like catamaran style boat, especially or supposed to be like especially good in like really rough water. Well, that day we got out there, it was like really, really rough water. Like I'm talking those kinds of waves. Like we're in a 60-foot boat and you would like go in a wave and like lose horizon sight and come back out of the other wave.
Ooh.
And so the guy who was driving the boat, he was kind of driving the boat a little bit like a dick, to quote my good friend Mr. Judson Brock. And and so we're driving and we go off of a wave and we drop off the backside of a wave. So you would think hitting a wave would be the problem. No, 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 no. It's the drop off the backside of the wave because it's like somebody literally taking the floor from under you and jerking it like 6 feet down. And
You
so
come off the boat?
yes, so I'm standing there and I'm holding on and we drop. And when we drop, these mackerel hooks literally float up in front of my face. Well, what's your natural reaction when you have 2-aught treble hooks coming towards your face?
Yeah, put your
So,
hands up.
so I cover my face, letting go, and I start floating backwards away because I'm now let go of the boat. Mackerel hook goes through my finger. I land, break my ankle. Don't even realize I broke my ankle at this point because I got a mackerel hook in my finger and it's killing me. And so I hit the deck. I'm sitting there. They get the boat stopped and they go, "What are you going to do about this?" So I take my 2 fingers, I jerk it apart and pull the, the treble out of this finger just to get it away
Ah.
from it. I take it and just shove it through and go, "All right, clip that off." And they're like, "Oh my God." Like they're looking at me like, what kind of like demon man have we got on the boat with us? I'll just cut that out. So they cut that out and I stand up. And when I stand up, my leg just gives out. Like I can't feel it. And it was at that moment I was like, "Uh-oh, I've done something bad to my foot." And at the time, I didn't think it was broke. And so, like, I kind of like played it off. I'm like, "I'm okay. I'll be fine." Walked on that bad boy. We drove 15 miles back inshore. I rode the entire time with a broken leg. Tried to fish with a broken leg and it didn't work. Tried to take a piss with a broken leg and it didn't work. Got back to the boat, like fumbled my way off the boat, and then walked all the way to the car, probably a good like 70 yards away. Got in the car, went into the house where we were staying. Bethany was there, and she's like, "Your leg is broke." I'm like, "No, I'll be fine. We're gonna ice it down. I'll be fine in the morning." I get up in the morning and I can't feel my foot. Like to the point of like I'm just has barely any sensation. And so I told Bethany, I'm like, "All right, it's broke. Let's go. We gotta go." So we drive 4.5 hours home to Knoxville to the orthopedic clinic. I get to the orthopedic clinic. Doctor comes walking in. He goes, "Listen, your leg's not broke." He said it's probably just a really, really bad strain. I'm like, "All right, cool." So he comes in and does the x-ray, whatever. He comes back. He goes, "Well, I was wrong. It's very broke, and we're gonna have to cast it." And he's like, "And we may have to do surgery if it doesn't heal properly."
Jeez,
And I luckily didn't have to have a plate put in my leg, but I did, however, have a cast for 8 weeks, I think 8 or 9 weeks, had the knee scooter, the whole nine, physical therapy. I think it was all said and down, it was like 16 weeks into the whole process. So I had a cast for 8 weeks and I did like 8 more weeks of a walking boot and physical therapy until it was healed. And so, yeah,
That's
no,
tough fishing, man.
dude, yeah, that was not fun. It was not fun. Did
I
catch
haven't
some
watched
king.
that video.
Yeah, you need to. We caught
I'll
some
check
king
it out.
mackerel and I hooked a grouper that kicked my ass, and that was about it. That's all we did that day.
And broke a leg and got hooks in your finger.
And that video got no views. Like, I thought I'd get a lot of views on it. Nope.
That's the worst.
Wasn't even worth
That's all right. The hook in the head didn't get any views either. So
I think YouTube's done with stuff like that, dude. I think the time of hooks and heads and broken legs and stuff like that is dead and gone. I think we've just got to make videos that these fine people want to watch, and I think these fine people like to watch fishing. And so,
ones that take actual effort.
yep,
Instead of
fishing
just
and
getting
catching
hurt.
cooks, buddy. Fishing and catching cooks.
Jeez. Well, that Tennessee bad luck just is stuck with me because I said I went twice and I caught one bass this whole time. So I
Dude,
didn't catch anything today, dude.
it's
Nothing.
been a weird spring. I think it's been a weird spring all across the country, to be honest with you. Like, dude, I'm normally hammering fish this time of year. And I mean, I've just not got on anything consistent. And it is the weirdest thing. And normally, I kind of got my finger to the pulse and like what other people are doing. And like a lot of the people that are from around here too just aren't catching a whole ton of fish. Unless they're like, offshore using live scope or something, fishing bushes, that kind of stuff. I mean, those people catch fish, but like even the Bassmaster Classic, man, I mean, you really look at it, those dudes going into the third day that had 17 pounds that made the third day of the Bassmaster Classic.
And that was total, right? For the
That was
first
total
2
over
days.
2 days. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, how crazy, we went to that one lake, and I say that, I've said we've had a weird spring, but this is how weird it's been, is we go to like Norris the first day, and we get like what 4 bites, right? I think we caught 4. I caught 4 fish the whole time,
Yeah.
and no big ones either. Then we go to that other lake, which I'm not going to put out into the world just yet, and catch 17 pounds on one bank. And then we go to Cherokee the Monday after the Classic and get 1 bite.
Yep.
Like, that's the weirdness that it's been. It's like you're either wrecking them or it sucks. And normally this time of year, it's like pretty consistent. But I don't know, man. I think it's just a lot of the crazy weather we've been having. I mean, it's been ups and downs. It's been cold. It's been hot. It's been rain. It's been drought. It's been tornadoes. And I think that kind of stuff just affects fish. Like, I think that,
Too much up and down.
yeah, it's just too much. It's like us, man. I mean, like, we finally just get worn out with it. Like, you can only have so much weather before you're just like, okay, let me have like 5 solid days of sun and I'll feel better by the end of it. And I think bass are the
Right.
same way. You give them 5 solid days of sun in the spring and they're like, all right, let's make some babies and eat everything that moves.
Well, it's been warm here since, it warmed up while I was still up there in Tennessee, and we hadn't had a front that, we had like a light front that made it drier, but didn't really knock the temperature down a whole lot.
Mhm,
But before I went up there, it gotten warm a little bit, and I went in my favorite kayak spot,
mhm,
and the one close to the house anyway,
mhm,
and it was doing good. They were hitting on top water already, and then I picked up a few after that. But then once that cold front hit, the same one that was there when I went up there,
mhm.
um, when it hit down here, I caught one fish, I think, and before I went up there, and that was it. And then when I got back, it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. I think I said at the beginning, I think we're going to have, or at the beginning of this year, I think we're going to have an early spawn. And now that it's kind of developing and the cold front moved through and everything, I think we're going to have a late spawn now. And, I was looking back at some content that I made a couple of years ago. It's like two years ago, I think is when it was. And we had this kind of same weather trend where we had like this really cold kind of snap come through, and then it got really hot, and then we had like a bunch of tornadoes and bad weather. Well, that's what we're having right now. Like, we keep having these big thunderstorms move through. And the bass really didn't start spawning until like the second week of May. And then like the second week of May, it kind of like all stabilized and like we cracked them. You know what I mean? And so I think that's kind of what we're dealing with this year. And I don't know. I find it interesting because I've had a couple biologists on over the past few podcasts. I've actually got another one coming on this Friday. And just talking to them, it's very interesting because we as fishermen look at things so micro, meaning like we look at year to year or week to week or month to month. when these biologists look at things in the macro, they look at things years and years
Right.
and years of data collection. And you can see these just ebbs and flows, and each ebb and each flow. Man, my wrist, you hear my wrist popping?
Is that what that is?
That probably should not do that. Yeah.
You're
Wow.
getting old, man.
Lord have
That's what
mercy.
happens when you get
That's,
old.
I mean, dude, you know it's rough when you can hear it popping on the microphone. But like each ebb and each flow is correlated, with a drought or a ton of rain, like a super rainy season or a thunderstorm season or a cold snap season. And so I think we as fishermen in all aspects, not just bass fishing, red fishing, saltwater fishing, trout fishing, whatever it is, we need to start looking at the macro a little more than we look at the micro, because when we look at the micro, we get this really narrow picture of what's actually going on when you really need to be looking at it years and years. And that's why I like to go like 2-3 years in the past. And that's what's cool about making videos. And not only do we make these
Right.
videos and get to do this cool stuff, but then you also got like this just storybook of stuff that you can always refer back to. And so,
I
yeah,
wanna
I think it's
I wanna
interesting.
somebody needs to develop an app where it's just something simple to where you can just, uh, I don't know, just push one button and it saves, I mean, all the weather data,
Hmm.
tides, everything. I had to deal with tides. You don't have to deal with that. But you could be, lake depth,
Hmm.
when how far it's drawing down or whatever. That way, I mean, that's the easy way. Of course, if I really wanted to do it, I'd get a notebook out and write all of it down. But who's going to do that, really? So
Yeah, there was the company that did that. It's called Angler. And I don't know if they're in business
yeah, but
anymore.
that thing failed, didn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think they're in business anymore, and it's because they tried to. It was like it was good and simple, and then it was kind of overcomplicated, and then they tried to gamify it. And when they tried to gamify, it's when
No,
it kind of went to when
I
went
don't.
to
I don't want it for fun. I want it for, after I collect data for 5 years, I can go back and see which spot's hitting in this kind of weather, this time of year, blah
yeah.
blah 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 blah.
Yeah. I think it's doable. I think it's hard, but I think it's doable. And I think it's going to have to take a company like Humminbird. I think it's going to have to take one of these electronics companies to do that. Like almost like an export, like a CVC file export system from your graph. And then you can then aggregate that data and kind of, turn it into these data sheets for you to be able to read. Now, my buddy Mr. Benjamin Nowak does this kind of stuff. Like he's weird. Like he builds his own freaking like data sheets and stuff and like keeps up with stuff like that because again he's a weirdo. But and he's also got all winter to set up there in the frozen hellhole that he lives in Michigan and, and punch all these numbers in. But he's done it. I mean, it's pretty interesting just kind of see weather trends and patterns and things. And I mean, I think it can make you a better fisherman. I think it makes him a better fisherman. I don't know. For me, like I feel like it could, but then all at the same time, I like to be very instinctual. So it's like, I like to fish the moment a lot more than I like to fish what I've fished before. And I think it can make you better, but then I think it can also kind of pigeonhole you into going, "Hey, we got to go to this lake and do this on this day."
Well, not necessarily because, when people say when you write something down, you remember it
Mhm,
better. So, I mean, just collecting the data, I don't know. I guess you could just look at it every now and then, but I think it would sharpen your instincts,
mhm,
if that makes any sense.
mhm.
Because it
Yeah,
doesn't necessarily mean you have to go to that spot. It's just you start figuring out what they're doing in that particular weather, in that particular, you know, time of year or whatever.
mhm. Yeah,
I mean, you don't have to stare at it like that guy did his live scope that day we were out on the lake, and I mean, we watched him for 45 minutes and he never picked his head up.
mhm.
That dude is
Crazy.
gonna have back issues.
Dude, and well, I told you though. I said that's the future. You are watching the future of bass fishing, right? Well, let me say this: the future of competitive bass fishing, and that's
Yeah,
one thing that I'm
competitive.
going to start doing a lot better job of distinguishing between bass fishing and competitive bass fishing. Because tournament bass fishing is completely different than just bass fishing or fishing in general.
Right.
But like that, Gussie is who won it, Jeff Gustafson, and he's a Canadian. But that dude was fishing for the sole purpose of winning a tournament. And it involved him staring at that screen for 3 days straight. And he did it. He almost screwed it up on the last day, but he did it. And I mean, what's crazy is you look at professional bass fishing as a whole. You got the MLF and BASS, and then a couple other little whatever they call themselves professional leagues, but I don't
The
really.
minor leagues.
They're not minor league. I mean that PFL or whatever it's called. I mean their payouts are $100,000, but I mean it's
True.
neither here nor there. Whatever. So, like, you look at let's say we'll take BASS and MLF for example. The first 3 events of BASS this year were all using live scope. The first 2 MLFs were one using live scope, and then Keith Poche won the one on Cherokee while you were here. We watched him win up in the river. So that's just
Right.
completely, I mean, little 10 boat, completely different style. But I mean, I think those are the extremes that it's going to take to win professional bass tournaments going into the future. I think that you have these dudes who are literal video game fishermen, and then you got a dude like Keith Poche who'll go bang his boat off rocks and catch
Yeah,
fish.
that was insane.
It is awesome. That's like I think that's really, really cool. But I don't know, it's very interesting, man. Like it kind of almost saddens me a little bit to think that that's where we're going, but that is where we're going. And it's every aspect of competitive fishing, kayak, boat, whatever it is, every level from the little weekend warrior tournaments all the way up to the biggest stage in the world. If you what's the saying? If you ain't scoping, you're just hoping. And that is the truest thing in the whole entire world. Because I mean, if you're
Man,
not scoping, it's hard to win money.
I mean, I guess they can do it in them tournaments, but I can't imagine that guy like I said, that kid, man. I mean, and he wasn't just looking down. He was bent over.
Mhm,
Like he was like at a 60-degree angle
mhm.
staring at that screen
Oh, that
and
kid on
did not
Cherokee,
look up.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that kid on Cherokee, what he needs is a higher graph mount and a bigger screen, poor kid. I mean, like, you gotta get some bigger you gotta get some more pixelization in there, get a little bit bigger screen. That was rough. I mean, that poor kid, I mean, he was bent.
Yeah.
This is like he was bent like that right there looking at
Dude,
that screen.
if I'm bent for like that for more than 5 minutes, it's hard for me to stand back up. I gotta sit down and take a break. I
Well,
mean,
there
this
you go.
dude
I
was
mean,
just
that's another example. That's a college kid competing in a college tournament. And I mean, that kid is out there with the sole purpose of trying to win that tournament. And dude, it's weird to me, man. It's weird, especially when you hear people say that I don't like fishing unless I'm in a tournament. I think that that is just a
that's
weird,
crazy.
it's weird. Like, it's
And you
weird.
don't like fishing. I if you have to be in a tournament, so you like competing, you like to win, but I mean to me that's not even. I mean, I get it. I get it's the competitive nature going out to fish a tournament and try and win. I wouldn't mind doing it every now and then,
Mhm.
but to only do that, that to me that just takes away what fishing is for me.
Yeah. Well,
I want to go out there and enjoy myself, relax. I can't relax if I have to win something.
see, and I think that's why I say there's a big difference between competitive fishing and fishing. And that's why I want to distinguish between, like, I love a good competition. Like, there's this tournament I'm thinking about fishing this weekend. I mean, I love to go fish those a kayak tournament specifically. I love doing it. It's fun. There's this sense of competitiveness. There's this sense of pressure that's fun. You know, you can put a little bit of money on the line. You can win some money. And it's all fun. Also makes for good videos because it kind of changes my decision making process. Where if I'm just
Mhm.
like fishing, I'm like, I'll stick around here for a few more minutes and kind of. Whereas when I'm in that environment, I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this for 5 more minutes, and then here in
Gotta
five
cover
minutes
some water.
yeah, I'm gonna go do this other thing and try to, catch fish. And so it's fun because it keeps my mind in two different kind of spaces when it comes to fishing, kind of helps me keep an edge. But dude, like I would say that, out of the 5 days of the week that I have that consider my work hours, quote unquote, that like 4 out of 5 of those, I'm gonna just go fishing for fun.
Mhm.
I was like, that's what I like to do. Like, I
Well,
get my kicks on dropping a little kayak off a bridge and going and catching a fish, or doing what we did the other day, which was drive 2 hours away from the house to this new lake and catch some giants. Like, that's how I get my kicks. I don't have to have that competitive aspect to get my kicks, but I think that that gets into this whole we'll get down a rabbit hole here, and I don't wanna get down it, but it gets into more of dudes who are addicted to gambling their skills against others, and it becomes a gambling thing, and it
yeah.
turns it into poker really quickly, and I think that that's what you're dealing with more than people who actually enjoy the fishing aspect of it, they enjoy the gambling and competitive aspect of it.
Well, the fact that people call it tournament fishing and fun fishing,
Mhm.
it should all be fun. I mean,
Mhm.
fishing is fun, but if it becomes that mindset, then I don't know. It just takes away the fun.
Oh, yeah.
But
Yeah, you'd be amazed how many people are like, "Oh, you just fun fishing?" Yeah, buddy, I'm just fun fishing. Like, what do you do? Like, you doing
what other
something
kind of
better?
fishing is there?
Are you doing something better than me? I mean, like, is there
Uh,
another kind of secret fishing I don't know about? Is there like a club I need to join, like, to get on this unfun fishing or like extra fun fishing?
yeah. So up there, well, it's a different world than down here.
Mhm.
Especially with when I started looking at the bass tournaments and all of that, and we talked about it about the eating the fish, the eating of the bass.
Yeah.
Man, I had people chew me out on TikTok when they see me put a bass in an ice chest and the bass jumped out. Who eats bass? I can't believe you're eating bass. I can't. I'm like, dude, I grew up, didn't even know people didn't eat bass.
Man, you're dealing with extreme ignorance. It's the best way I can put it. That's the nicest way that I can put it because ignorance is not being an idiot and it's not being stupid. Ignorance is a lack of knowledge.
Just not
It's
knowing.
not knowing something. It's the not knowing of something. And a lot of people don't realize that the health of a fishery depends on anglers keeping some bass. You want to grow big bass. You want to grow the kind of bass that we all want to catch, that 4, that 5, that 6, 7, 8, 10 pound fish. You gotta keep bass. And so, I had Steven on the other day. He's the director of MLF conservation stuff, and fascinating conversation. I mean, probably one of the most fascinating conversations I've ever had on my podcast. And one thing that he was kind of talking about and we kind of started to wade into that I thought was a very interesting conversation was the difference between conservation and stewardship. So we're really, really good at conservation, like really good at it. We have it down to a literal science. Like literally, it's a science. It's the science of conservation. And so when a conservation director or a state agency looks at any given body of water, they're looking at that given body of water from every aspect, not just the aspect of people who are fishing for big fish or tournament fishing or guys like me who just want to catch big fish. They're looking at it as what does everybody use it for? And so what they do is they stock and they manage that body of water so that every person can have as positive as of an experience with that fishery as they possibly can. That means the competitive bass angler, the weekend warrior, the fun fisherman, the kid and his dad that's fishing from the bank, the dude who fishes from his float boat, the guy who buys a fishing license once a year just to catch a couple fish off his dock while he's there in the summer, the guy who's going to keep 5 and put them in the grease, all of those people. And so what happens is that we become inevitably overrun with a lot of 12 to 15-inch fish. And then you have hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of 12 to 15-inch fish, but only a few of those bigger than average fish that we all like to catch, those ones we like to run into. And the only way to remedy that is to take out those smaller fish to create less competition so that those bigger than average fish will have more food to then grow bigger over time. And
Yep.
then going from the conservation side to the stewardship side, then we have to steward those individual exceptional fish in a lot better way than we do. And stewardship means to protect that individual fish. So we get away from conservation, which is I want to protect fish as a whole. And we step into stewardship, which means I want to protect this particular fish with exceptional qualities. And when we combine conservation with stewardship, is when we really start to get into this world where we can start truly growing some lakes with some freak giants in every aspect. I mean, whether it be redfish, flounder, bass, crappie, catfish, whatever it is, but specifically bass, just because of the kind of species that they are and the way that they act and the things that they do. So that means like not sticking that 4 pounder in a live well and driving it all over the lake and then weighing it in a scale and holding it up for a picture and suffocating it and throwing it back in water that's 10 degrees warmer than the water that you took it out of. And then ultimately it swims off and you go, oh, I did a good thing by putting him back into water. But then it swims off and a week later dies from delayed mortality. And you're still
Yep.
as ignorant as you were when you put the fish in the water and thought that you did a good thing. That's stewardship. Stewardship is knowing that that's not a good thing. And the more people that I can have that conversation with, and we can start to influence people's decision making into it's okay to eat bass, but we also have to steward big fish and to make them bigger fish, is the day that it all shifts. But it's going to take a mass like re-education of bass fishing specifically, because bass fishing has gone to this extreme of catch and release every single thing, and it's a sin to not catch and release every single thing. And that is probably the most ignorant position that we can be in as bass fishermen in particular, especially bass fishermen who want to catch big bass.
So we have the opposite problem here. Is everything that gets hooked goes in the ice chest for most people.
Mhm.
And, there's a bunch of outlaws too. So just because it's a slot limit doesn't mean
Yeah.
the redfish outside the slot aren't going in ice chest.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people with tactics where you put it in a bucket and keep it next to the water. If the green jeans come, you just kick it over and woodfish.
Yeah.
So I hear stories, but yeah, like I said, it's the opposite. And I think it comes from the poverty back in the day here. It's the deep South Cajun, Spanish, German,
Mhm.
but everything they didn't have the money, so everything they caught was food.
Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
that kind of got passed on to now it's not the case anymore.
Mhm.
But that's just that mentality of every trip's a meat haul.
Mhm.
So they keep everything.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
I would like to get I'd like to get a biologist from here, from our wildlife and fisheries, try to get them on the podcast and ask them, because I mean we don't have very many big bass in the tidal waters anyway. I'm
Mhm.
not sure about our lakes, but I would like to know if it is because everybody keeps bass that we can't get big ones, or is it they just won't grow because of salinity and.
That's probably more than anything. It's just the environment isn't right to grow big bass in.
That's what I think.
Yeah, I actually looked at it one time because there's this lake down in Orange Beach, Alabama that I fish when I go down there, and it's the closest fully freshwater lake to the ocean. And so inevitably with, whether it's like storm flows or whatever, there's a little bit of salt gets in there. And I mean, obviously there's a certain level of salinity that is in the lake, period, because there's redfish in there too.
Mhm.
Anywho, but those bass like just don't. I mean, they're just not gonna get that big. Like you'll have that one or two like exceptional fish that like do really well and get big, but like big is like 5 pounds. And I think it just has something to do with the bass's inability to do well in super salty water or even a little bit salty water. Because that's one thing. There's this place. It's called the Sabine River. You probably know about it. I think it's on the Louisiana Texas line, and like the tournaments will go there, and everybody always talks about Sabine River sucks because there's no big fish. Well, a lot of it just has to do with the salinity level. I mean, the fish just physically can't get big enough. And then I think too, there's the aspect of the competitive nature of saltwater. So, like a redfish is going to outcompete a bass, period. They're more aggressive, they're bigger, they're faster, they're stronger, they eat more. They're just more of a apex predator in that environment than a bass is. And ultimately, there's not a lot of stuff in salt water for a bass to consume that is going to be as nutritious as it needs to grow. And so, like, I Stephen was talking about this the other night, Stephen Barden. He was, if I remember correctly, he was like, a fish has to eat 6 pounds of food a week to grow a pound per year.
Wow.
Yeah, and so like that's a bass. If I think that's what but it's if it's not that exactly, if I misspoke, it's something very close to that. So like you got to think about like if a bass is in salt water and he's surrounded by blue crabs and shrimp and a few little bait fish and like mullet. Like those aren't all very accessible things for a bass. Like you're gonna have to tangle with a blue crab. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like shrimp are quick and are gonna get away from him. The mullet, yeah, there's some mullet that are big and small enough for him to eat, but a lot of them are big. Whereas a redfish just looks at that and goes, "Oh yeah," like it swims up on a blue crab and crushes it into 1,000 pieces and just goes on with its day munching
Oh,
on
they
shrimp.
love crabs. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just one of those things. It's like I think that when you look at that salinity level, you're just dealing with it. Ain't enough food and it's not the right environment kind of
I
deal.
tell you what, them bass do like those blue crabs though.
Do they?
Yeah, oh yeah. They like the little, the
Little
babies that
ones.
was
Yeah,
swimming around. Yeah. I've caught several bass and cut the bellies open. They were full of those little crabs.
that's funny, man. That's like a little
Yep.
crawdad. I mean, it's
Yeah.
essentially the same
Usually
little
the
critter.
same thing. Yeah. And
I'd
I
like
mean shrimp. I, I mean, I don't see why they wouldn't eat shrimp.
oh, I'm sure they crush shrimp. I think it's just more maybe it's how hard they are to catch. I don't know. Shrimp are interesting. Shrimp is just a weird thing to me, period. Like when I was
Shrimp are
red fishing,
delicious.
Oh yeah, they are. But like when I was red fishing, to see the shrimp jumping away from the redfish as they swim down the bank, and then you realize like how many freaking shrimp, just the biodensity of just things in the water there is absolutely insane. Like, and I think again that plays into probably why bass aren't that big. You gotta think. I mean, I don't know how it is down there, but I know when we were in North Carolina, I'm looking at that picture and that is our background. Are those fish swimming down the bank in that picture? Are those redfish or is that just
No,
grass?
that's just grass.
Oh, okay, never
So
mind.
that dark area below
Mhm,
me is
mhm,
just cleaner water dumping into dirtier water.
okay, sorry, that was my ADHD kicked in there for a minute.
Squirrel.
Squirrel. Um, but anyway, like there was one thing that struck me about North Carolina is we would go back in these flats, and Judd would push poles back in these flats, and you would see redfish, flounder, stingrays, mullet, shrimp, crabs, just all these other little fish, these like pinfish looking thing. I don't even know what they're like. I think they're called pinfish. And like there's all these fish and all and little sharks. Like there'll be little sharks swimming around back in there. And like, but then too, like it wasn't like, oh, there's one, and then like 10 minutes later, oh, there's another one. It's literally like stingray, 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 flounder, stingray, flounder, stingray, stingray. It's like a pod of 15 redfish pushing a pod of shrimp that's as big as the front of the boat. Stingray, stingray, flounder, stingray. I mean, like just so many animals in one spot.
It's not always like that, but it does definitely get that way.
Yeah, it's just crazy. Like I mean, and I know bass fishing and freshwater fishing is probably very similar. Like you think about biodensity. I'm sure if you like jerk the water out of the lake, you would just really realize how much is there. But just being able to see it with your eyes, you just go, wow, like there is so much here versus like freshwater where I feel like there's some banks that you go down, there's going to be nothing there. Where
Nothing.
there, it's like there's always feels like there's something there. You know what I mean?
Man, I'm going to my absolute favorite spot next week, and you need to come down and fish that
Okay.
as soon as you can get over here,
Little red fishing hole.
dude. It's especially right now. Well, I mean, it's been weird the last couple weeks, but right now, usually bass, redfish, there might still be some trout hanging around. They're gonna start pushing offshore. Um, but I mean, I've caught sheephead there, just like our sheepshead, not whatever y'all call sheephead or whatever they call sheephead up north.
Hmm?
There's a sheephead that they up north somewhere, like some kind of freshwater
Oh, it's
sheephead.
a drum. It's just a black drum, not
No,
your black
it's
drum.
something different. It's not the same.
Well,
It's a different fish.
sheephead.
When
Sheephead
you
fish.
type in sheep's head, it's the one with the people teeth. That's what I'm talking about. But
Yeah,
somebody told me
they
I've
live
had a
on
few
Fish
people
Islands and
talk
stuff.
about sheephead up north.
Hmm. I see. I've always known that as a sheephead. I didn't know that there was another fish that people called sheephead.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah, I
weird.
don't know.
I don't either. That is a weird fish though. That has people teeth. I don't like that. It kind of freaks me out to be totally honest with you.
They are delicious though.
I've heard they are delicious, and I heard they fight like a mug too.
Yeah. Oh, they're fun. They definitely fun.
Yeah, I've never.
Last year I thought it was a redfish tailing, and I cast it and I reeled him up. It was one of those, but he fought like a redfish. The
So
beast.
angler tail, how I caught the state record 36-pound sheephead on Oneida Lake, and it's a drum. It's a freshwater drum.
Oh.
So that's what they call freshwater drum, just because they're idiots. It's hey there, ho there, we're gonna go catch you some sheephead there, bud. Like shut up and sit up there. You frozenness.
Yeah, that's something that got me too. When people talk about season, like it's fishing season. I'm like, what does that even mean?
Yeah, I have no idea. That's
It
one.
has to be where it freezes, like where ice
Yeah,
lakes.
essentially the ice. I mean, the ice is what creates seasons, and then two, there's seasons. So like in Michigan, you cannot keep any fish until like May something. I think it's literally the first week of June, and then you can start keeping fish. So they have like seasons, and in Canada, it's definitely like this. So essentially, they just cut off bass fishing during the spawn, and you're not allowed to keep any fish during the spawn, which is honestly, again, kind of a misguided, almost ignorant assumption that. Anywho, we're not going to get into that. I've had that discussion on my podcast. If you want to listen to it, it's
You want to go check it out?
yeah, it's in one of the
It's another
conversations
show.
with John Hammond. Essentially, he told me he was like, fishing bedded bass. He said every person could go fish beds all day and keep their entire 5 fish limit and never even have a like minute effect on the overall bass population, because there are literally millions upon millions upon millions of bass being born. And that's like the whole reason bass are successful is they're just like spray and pray animals. They're just like, we're going to have as
Right.
many babies as we possibly can because there's going to be a hope that like a percent of them survive. Well, if there's 150 million baby bass born in a given season and 1% survives, that's 1.5 million new bass that you're going to get into the lake. So anyway, here, there,
But,
whatever.
like, I haven't kept bass since Hurricane Ida because we had a Wildlife and Fisheries put it out. I don't know. I don't remember if I saved it somewhere, but I forget millions of fish were killed in this fish kill after the storm or during the storm and everything. So in my mind, I'm like, I'm not gonna keep any bass until last spawn and then now this spawn. So after this spawn, I'll start keeping bass.
Hmm.
Now I don't know. I mean, they even said that they're gonna bounce back quick because nature's been through this before. They know. So for one thing, you have less predation because a lot of other fish died. So the ones that are laying eggs and making new babies aren't the babies aren't going to get eaten as fast. So the population is going to get built back pretty quick. So whether it matters if I keep bass or not, I don't know. But just out a good measure, I'm going to go ahead and wait till after the spawn, and then they got to watch out because they're going to have some fish fries.
Well, I think it'll be all right. I think it'll be all right. I mean, dude, really, when you look at bass fishing and you look at fishing and you look at conservation and you look at the outdoors as a whole, the biggest threat we have to all of the outdoors is invasives and our own damn stupidity in not conserving habitat. It's
Yeah,
your two
well,
biggest threats. Period.
habitat's
And stop.
huge down here because we're
Yep.
losing land
Yep. Yep.
at an alarming rate.
Yep. And I mean, you look at the nutria down there. I mean, that's an invasive that
Mm-hmm.
just totally crushed the native population
The vegetation.
yeah, of vegetation. And so it's our own misguided stupidity that is creaming the natural habitat. And so it's like this twofold problem. And I mean, it's the same thing here in Tennessee. You know, the Alabama spotted bass, Coosa River spotted bass is going to be the death of smallmouth in East Tennessee if we're not careful. And then I'll only be able to catch brownfish when I go to, up north to Michigan. I mean, like that's like that lake we went to the other day. I mean, dude, if Alabama spotted bass got in that lake, 10 years and it's done. It's an Alabama spotted bass lake.
What are they just more aggressive? I mean,
So Steven actually talked about this some, and I've talked about this with John as well. Essentially, a spotted bass is not as needy when it comes to what it needs to eat, live, and breed.
the
And so
more
they can
hardy fish.
essentially, and they can spawn and have successful eggs in a much wider range of temperatures from 55 to 75. They can make babies, even up into 85. They've seen beds be successful with spotted bass. They hybridize with smallmouth. And so essentially what they do is they just breed out the genetic pool of the smallmouth because the Alabama spotted bass has a much stronger genetic than a smallmouth does. So they interbreed with them, which then creates what we call a mean mouth. But eventually those mean mouths spawn with more spots. And because that spot gene is so much stronger, eventually it just breeds completely out and
Goes back to
a
spots.
you just have a fully Coosa River spotted bass. And so there's a couple lakes around here that I mean, Parksville's one of them, and a lot of that down there. I mean, there's no brownfish left. And Dustin Line said the Asian carp. Honestly, they're not that worried about them anymore. Like they were actually talked to them at the TVA and Theater Air about that. They're more worried about the Alabama spotted bass, like ruining the smallmouth population. The carp, they essentially have them under control. The biggest thing we've got to do now with the carp is make them a valuable resource and turn it into a business. And so that's why they were handing out carp samples at the Bassmaster Classic.
Mhm.
They
I didn't
want
get to taste that.
it's good. I mean, it really is a clean tasting fish. It's good and it's flaky, it's clean tasting fish. But like they're trying to find some market that they can, have a business around collecting those carp. Because when that turns into a business is when we can essentially eliminate those fish from the environment. And again, it goes back to, that's a good thing in that sense, but it shows how easily and how like we're on a slippery slope with that as well, that we as humans can literally eliminate an entire species from a lake if we turn it into a business.
Mhm.
Imagine now what we're doing with our oceans, and then again our habitat that our animals live in. And again, I go back to say invasives and habitat loss are the two biggest threats to anything we've got going on.
Yeah, buddy. I'm hoping I can get some more biologists or some biologists on this podcast. I got one that I got to send the email out to the fur bear biologist to come on and talk about Nutra.
I would
Hopefully
love
that'll happen
that.
soon
Yeah,
because
that's awesome.
there's many questions. I know a lot of people have questions like with the seasons and why there are limits to certain people and all of that. So I get her to explain all of that. Something to do with a black market, but you know,
Ain't nothing
I
better than
don't.
a black market.
I just don't understand it. Like if you want them going, you want them going. But my only, maybe they just don't want them going. I don't. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't
Hey,
know. But what?
green, blue, or purple?
Green, blue, or purple? Purple.
My balls was hot.
There you go. That's all I got. I'm done. Lord of mercy.
I don't know why it's not loud enough.
You got to turn it up. Turn it up more on your board.
I have it turned up all the way.
Oh,
you will never forget the sacrifice that Sweet Baby Ray's made to save your own life and entrust in your hands the future of human civilization.
So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah!
We're playing with buttons. All right, y'all. It's past an hour. We're starting to just play with buttons instead of talking about fishing. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this thing up, guys. You can check this out wherever you get your podcast, or you can join us live on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Just depends on when I'm working. You can check out stories on Instagram and Facebook. That'll let you know when we're having this thing. And of course, you can check out Alex Rudd on all of social media, pretty much at Alex Rudd Fishing.
That's me. You'll see my ugly mug.
Yeah, the drawing of his ugly mug in a circle. You'll see
That's it. It's orange. It's orange with my cartoon face on there. Alex Rudd Fishing on every platform.
All right, folks. Peace out.
Bye.